the Daily Ramble podcast.
Hello Hammers fans, David Moyes here and you're watching Claret and Booze. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Good afternoon everyone and welcome to Claret and Booze. My name's Nick, this is my Daily Ramble. I hope you're all well. Before we get into today's show, if you haven't already, please get yourselves over to the Kent and Sussex Tea and Coffee Company. Can never get my finger in the right place. Everyone loves their tea and coffee. Well, if you like me, you do. Great place, better than the supermarkets, and it's cheaper as well, and that's without our 15% discount, which you can get if you go to checkout and type in Claret 15. So get over there, you'll find the link in the description. Also, if you're new to this channel, please subscribe, drop a like on the video, because it does really help us. So what we're going to talk about today, right, there's a few things that we're going to cover. The big one, the links to the next manager. Which have been kind of circulated and poo-pooed by certain people, and those are the links to Julian Lopetegui, or Lopetegui, wherever you pronounce his name, and Paulo Fonseca as well. So we're going to talk about them in a bit. We are. But before we get there, I want to go on to talk about the club, really, and what they're doing with David Moyes and what is the right thing to do. Because the way that we're dealing with this is ridiculous. It stinks. It's terrible for the fans. It's terrible for the players. And look, I've got no time for David Moyes, but it's terrible for him as well. He should have been put out of his misery a long time ago. He should not have been allowed to continue into this season. All the proof that we needed that he wasn't fit enough for the top flight was there for all to see last season. When in the Premier League, it was. I know we won the cup, but, it was that 1 minute saved his job. He was getting sacked. So it's crazy. They should have let him go. He would have gone out a hero. And they've just allowed this season to run and run and run. And this was always going to happen. They've kind of given him enough rope to hang himself in the January transfer window as well. Now, look, I'm not absolving David Moyes of any guilt. Far from it, because it's quite clear that written into his contract, he's got final refusal on transfer. So they can't just bring players in and they can't just sell players without David Moyes' say-so. We know that this is a thing because, as we mentioned on the Sunday night show, great show, by the way, go back and watch it. We had Jazz, Tommy and Luke on there. Really, really good. Alan Kirbishley had a similar thing in his contract all those years ago, and the club went and sold a player. I can't remember who it was. I think it was McCartney. They sold a player, and he basically took them to court, took them to a tribunal, and he won. So this is a thing. And when David Moyes signed his contract, it was after the Lingard season. His stock was as high as it's ever going to be. He held all the cards. He would have been very astute with the terms and conditions that were inserted into that contract, because he would have wanted to have protected himself, especially after Sullivan already released him the first time. So he would have wanted some protection. There's going to be protection in there. So these players that have not come in and have been released, they're all absolutely to do with David Moyes. The whole thing is to do with David Moyes. But the fact that it's been allowed to happen is down to David Sullivan. He should have been relieved of his duties. The one way to get around that is to get rid of the problem. The problem was a contract. The problem was a man. Just pay him off, get rid of him. This was always going to happen. They should feel absolutely idiotic now, because they look fucking idiotic. They do. I said it on the review yesterday. Karen Brady and Sullivan. I think Sullivan felt like a bit of a genius because he stuck with David Moyes after Christmas when he should have sacked him. But because David Moyes went through that competition, which had no competition in it, and he got to the final and managed to win it, he felt like a genius, and he's trying to do the same again. And it's all because they wanted him to run his contract down. They didn't want to pay him off. And also, there is another side to it as well. Tim Steidten was getting his house in order. He was getting all of his staff in. They wanted him to kind of get used to the league, get all the pieces in place before we went out and went and got his manager in. It gave Tim a bedding in period. It gives him a chance to analyse the squad that we've got, the youth academy, to really get a feel for what it is that we actually need when we go out and embark on this massive rebuild, which we absolutely are going to have to do. Whether there's money there or not, we've got to do it. There's going to be so many players leaving. There's so many players that are old and past it, as we saw against Palace. And it's going to really go badly now. We got absolutely walloped by Palace. We've been walloped umpteen times this year, and we haven't been walloped enough. The amount of games where we've conceded 20 to 30 shots on our goal and we haven't conceded. We've been inviting these beatings upon ourselves. That's what we've been doing all season long. It's been blindingly obvious to anyone with fucking eyes in their head and anyone with half a brain where this was going, especially when you look at how thin the squad was. And it's one thing having a small squad, but couple that with the fact that it's an old squad as well. How are they ever going to be able to sustain this? It's piss poor management. David Moyes, he does take full accountability for it without realising, because he'll come out like he did in the Standard this week and he'll say, I don't like a big squad. I like small squads. Big squads are problematic. You know, he's basically saying it's not wrong to have a small squad, but then he complains that he's getting injuries, he's getting suspensions, fixtures are piling up. It doesn't make any sense. He's a walking contradiction, the man. He really is. It's never his fault. He's people said that he was honest post-match. No, he weren't. He was absolutely deflated and he was dejected and he had no excuses. There were no excuses. That picture of him sitting there in a dugout deep in fault is David Moyes sitting there thinking of what he can say post-match. That's what it is. So what he did was he just put it all on the players because it's all the players' fault. David Moyes never, ever takes accountability for anything, ever. People would have more respect for him if he did. I mean, the players didn't turn up, but his management in that game was shit. It was shocking. His starting lineup, his shape, everything was wrong the whole way through. It was awful. He never takes accountability. But the fact of the matter is, he did win us a cup. He did. And it looks like the club, as in Sullivan and co, they're going to allow this season to get to a stage where David Moyes is absolutely hounded out. Now, I know that people are going to watch this and go, well, you've been handing him out. We'll say, yeah, I have. I'm a fan. I can't stand him. But not all fans are the same as me. And you certainly don't get that in the stadium. And it will really hit home and hit him hard if it happens in the stadium. He's gone now. We know that. I think it would be in the best taste for the club, not for me, but for the club, the way it looks for West Ham, if they were to release a statement at the very least to say, look, David Moyes is gone at the end of the season. He's going to move on to pastures new, but we're going to let him see out the last 4 games. Please give him the send-off that he deserves. And then do you know what? People would. When it got to the last home game against Luton, he would get clapped off the pitch. He would. And it wouldn't all be in bad taste. We could all part ways and go, you know, it would just have all come to its natural end. But I don't think that is what Sullivan is going to do. I think he's going to allow David Moyes to fall off of a cliff and for the fan base to really, really fuck him off out of that stadium against Luton. Because if we get battered against Liverpool and in these remaining games and then a home against Luton, we don't win or we don't play well and we get beat, it's going to be awful in there. No more than he deserves, mind. In this position, no more than Sullivan deserves. But for the image of the club and for the image of the board in particular, they need to do things the right way. They should be coming out and laying their cards on the table and saying, look, this is how it is. Now, for me personally, he shouldn't even be here now because there is clearly an issue. He's a problem for the fan base. He has been for ages now. He's massively divisive. Whether you're Moyes in or you're Moyes out, you can't argue the fact that he is a divisive manager. Yes, he is. I get people blaming me on Twitter for being divisive. Yeah, I'm the one that sold fucking Skamaka, Kera, Benny, Fornals and brought Phillips in. I did that, didn't I? I'm the one that can't manage games in-game. I'm the one that sets us up to fucking concede the most touches in our own box. That's me. No. Basically, if we were getting results and it was going well, then the division wouldn't be there. If we were getting football that was okay, nobody would be complaining. But it has been awful. It's been torture this season. It really has been. And the vast majority of people have been sick of it for a long, long time. Yes, they have. And I just think it would make sense and it would be the best thing now for Sullivan to do the right thing by the club, by himself, by us, but also by David Moyes. Because it doesn't need to necessarily end as badly as I think it's going to end. I think he's going to go out to an absolute inferno of hate. That could happen if they don't do something soon, because the fans will start to get desperate and twitchy and they will feel like they've got to make their feelings known because Sullivan isn't giving anything back. So at that stage, I suppose as a fan, if that's what you want, then you've got to make your feelings known. If you think and you're worried that Sullivan hasn't made his mind up yet, then you've got to speak out. You've got to show that this is not what we want. You've got to move on. It's ridiculous what they're doing. It's so cowardly and also quite spiteful as well. It is quite spiteful because the guy is like, it's like shooting fish in a barrel with David Moyes at the moment. He's gone. He's shot to pieces. Just get him out. Get him out. You look at the state of him. He's dishevelled. He's fucked. He's run out of ideas. He ran out of ideas a long time ago. He ran out of ideas at the start of the season. That's why he reverted back to doing what he said had been found out before the previous season. Do you know when we got Rob Newman in and we embarked on getting in all of these new players to change our playing style? He did that because he said that we'd been found out. The low block had been found out. Well, his great idea this year was to go back to that. But more so, even more defensive. You know, the key to unlock it all was James Ward-Prowse. We was just going to sit deep and score goals from set pieces. That was the plan. It was that basic. And the club have just sat by and watched this happen. And it's all over in the summer. We know that. So the worst way, we've got four games left of misery. That's all we've got. Now, we know that Tim Steiten's been out in Brazil. We know that he's been looking at players. The player that I've been told that he's been looking at, by the way, is a player called Wesley, who plays for Corinthians. He's a 19-year-old left winger. Don't know too much about him, so we'll talk about him a little bit more in another show. But apparently, that is a player that he's looking at amongst others. But yeah, fits the bill. 19 years old, wouldn't cost a fortune. Really, really talented player by all accounts, from what I've been told. So I don't think he's looking for a manager out there. I know that there's been talk of a manager. I can't think of his name now, but I don't think that's going to be the case. Now, the links that have been peddled today and in the past, to give you a little bit of background information on these, right? Now, Tim Steiten is going to be going out there looking for, you'd like to say, the next De Zerbi, you know, a coach, a specialist, because what we had at West Ham when David Moyes came in was David Sullivan and then David Moyes underneath. And David Moyes was a manager. He had to manage every aspect of the football club. That's kind of what he did. That's what an old-fashioned manager does. They run everything. So they're not specialists in anything, but they can do a lot. They're jacks of all trades. And coaching is not his strong point, David Moyes. It really fucking isn't. Neither is man management. I don't actually know what he's good at, but he must be good at something. But what we've got now is we've got a complete structure in place now for a coach to come in. So we can now go out and get a specialist coach to come in, coach the team, and manage them on a match day. It's as simple as that. That's what we need to do. So a lot of the names that are being bandied about, I've seen people saying, well, what about Jose? What about Fonseca? What about this man? What about that man? I don't think you're going to be going out and getting the same old-fashioned type of manager. We're probably going to get someone, I hope anyway. I hope we get a manager that nobody's expecting, that nobody's even really heard of. That's what I want. Who'd heard of De Zerbi? You know, nobody had heard of Alonso as a manager either. There's countless examples of this throughout Europe as well, you know, and that is a route that I think that we should be taking. And that is how you will know that Tim has chosen the next manager. That's how you'll know, if it is someone of that profile. How you'll know that Tim hasn't signed the next manager is if it is somebody like a Fonseca or like a Lopetegui, particularly those two. And I'm going to tell you why. So let's start with Fonseca, and then we'll get onto Lopetegui. Fonseca is basically Barry Silkman's manager. You know, he's like a player, like he manages players, he also manages managers as well. So he is his manager. Now, the reason that Barry Silkman and other agents are going to be getting quite desperate now is because they had a direct tap into David Sullivan before. It was free reign. It was a cash cow. Sullivan was a cash cow for agents. But now what Sullivan has done is he's gone out and he's gone and got Tim Steiten in to take control of all of this. That's what he's done. So he is the filter. Tim Steiten is the filter now. The agents have now got they've got no route through, no path through. They can't pull Sullivan's pants down. They can't do it anymore. So what what the likes of Barry Silkman is trying to do is to instill one of his managers in place that has got a relationship with Barry Silkman and quite a high-profile manager that would challenge Tim Steiten and not necessarily work well in that dynamic. So we'd end up with a similar scenario to what we've got now. You'd have Tim Steiten, Sullivan, and the manager butting heads over transfers. I want this player. I want that player. It would be a fucking mess again. There would be no harmony. There really, really wouldn't. You almost need the next coach to come in has to be subservient to Tim. That's the way it has to work, unfortunately. It really is. For us to have a well-oiled machine, that's how it needs to be. The parts need to be right. The people need to be right. Tim is running the club now. That's how it needs to be. So Fonseca is a big no from me. Silkman's got all the contacts in the media as well. So the reason he keeps on getting punted around is because Silkman is releasing that story. He's trying to push it. He's trying to push him on Sullivan. He wants his man in there so that he can maintain his cash cow. Hopefully that won't happen. I don't think it will. I don't think we're getting Fonseca. Sorry, Silkman, you're gonna have to go and try and find someone else to milk. You are. I think you're done at West Ham in that respect. The other one is Lopetegui. So Lopetegui, it's a very similar situation. This is another super agent. Well, he is the super agent, and that's a Portuguese Jorge Mendes, who has long had connections with West Ham via Tony Henry, and they're connected. Similar sort of relationship. And again, this would cause massive issues. At 57 years old, he's managed Spain, he's managed Real Madrid. He's not the type of profile of manager that's going to come in and be told what he's doing. He's an old-fashioned manager. I'm not saying he's bad. I'm not saying Fonseca's bad, but they've got to be the right people. And again, these people would be Sullivan picks. They wouldn't be Tim picks. That would mean that Sullivan is still interfering with everything, and it means that he still wants to basically have his hands all over deals and stuff like that. Look, I haven't got to say why. I haven't got to say why, but it's there. If you use your brain, people use their favourite agents for a reason. That's what they do. So Jorge Mendes, it'll be a similar situation, and it will be a conflict of interest, and it would be a battle for Tim as well, because again, Lopetegui will be getting pressure from Mendes. Take this player. And Tim's going to be like, no, I've got my own path. I've got my own players. You're going to take this one. It wouldn't work. So a manager of that profile, I can't see happening. The only one that there is only one that I could see happening of that profile, and this is absolutely a Tim link, and that's Tommy Tickle. That's Thomas Tuchel. We know that Tim has a very good relationship with him, so that could work. Providing whichever manager it is or coach comes in, providing they're willing to work for Tim and fit into his vision, that's fine. That'll be absolutely fine. But I will say, look, I'm not going to piss and moan if we get Lopetegui or Fonseca in. If it happens, it happens. We'll have to make the best of it. Anything is better than what we've got at the moment. Anything's better than what we've got at the moment. Honestly, I'd take fucking Dave Fonseca and Eddie fucking Lopetegui, whatever his name is. I wouldn't care. But the fact of the matter is, long term, to give us a bit of an idea of the route that we're going in, whether there is a project and whether Tim is being given the tools that he needs to kind of drive on, just look at the profile of manager that we bring in next. In my opinion, I would like to see an unknown. That would be exciting to me. That would be exciting. A lot of people not so. They're obsessed with, well, we ain't got no experience. Well, neither has Alonso got any experience. He's managed about 50 games, versus David Moyes' million games, and look at the difference. Doesn't matter. This is a different role. It isn't an old-fashioned management role. So look, that's what I wanted to give you anyway. Give you a few little snippets there. I don't think there's any legs in it. I think it's basically Jorge Mendes and Barry Silkman leaning on their friends in the media, peddling bullshit stories, because that's what they want. They want to apply pressure to Sullivan. I think there's a bit of it's known in the industry that Sullivan is a little bit weak, and he's, in terms of, he cares what the public think and stuff like that. So if somebody picks up a story like TalkSport pick up Lopetegui and they go, oh, this would be amazing, Lopetegui to West Ham, what a high-profile signing. That's the sort of thing that would get Sullivan's juices flowing, because he is that simple. Hopefully that isn't the case. Hopefully there's something deeper at play. Hopefully it is the Tim project, which is what we all want. So all I'm trying to say is Sullivan, just do what you said that you was going to do when you brought Tim in. Let him run it. Just let him run it. And you'll reap the rewards anyway, because you're going to sell up eventually, and you'll be able to sell it for an awful lot more than what you could now if we're successful, like properly successful. And we could be. We could be properly successful. As I've said before, in the last 4 years, we've spent 280 million net. 500 million in total, but 280 million net spend. Leverkusen, where Tim was at before, over the last 5 years, they've spent an average of 10 million net a season. And look at them. Look at them. If a club's run properly, it doesn't have to cost a fortune. So, yeah, that's it from me. I hope you enjoyed the show. I'm going to let you go because I've got to get back to work. Speak to you all soon. And, yeah, come on, you ones. Shall I leave you with a little gift first? Here we go. Ta-da.
Well, I'd say that what MD's getting here with me is a very experienced Premier League manager. Arguably, there's only 2 or 3 who've got more experience, games in the Premier League. I think I've probably got the biggest win rate out of a certain amount of managers as well. So I think if you're putting it that way, that's what I do. I win, that's what I do. I win, that's what I do. I win, that's what I do. I win.
Oh fuck, I've gone and pissed myself. What do I look like covered in this? I look like a fucking loser drenched in piss. I was gonna sing about yourself, but instead I went and pissed myself. At least I'm not lost all self-respect until now, because oh fuck, I've gone and shit myself. Well, would you look at this? I'm all covered in piss and shit. Just earlier I was looking swell, but by golly now I smell. And that's too bad, because I was gonna sing about yourself, but instead I shit and piss myself.
The Daily Ramble